Most people think financial success comes from huge moments, a massive business idea, a lucky investment, a six-figure salary. But in reality, most financial futures are built by tiny daily decisions people barely notice. And honestly, that's both the scary part and the beautiful part, because it means people don't usually become financially stable overnight. But it also means they don't become financially stressed overnight either. Everything compounds: good habits, bad habits, daily discipline, daily carelessness. And over time, those small repeated choices quietly become entire lifestyles. Now, here's something interesting. $10 doesn't feel important in the moment. Most people spend that amount without thinking twice. Coffee, food delivery, subscriptions, impulse purchases, little comforts that disappear almost instantly. But when small amounts are repeated consistently over years, they stop being small. And that's exactly what this video is about. Because today, we're going to break down what actually happens when someone saves just $10 a day for 10 years. Not from a fantasy perspective, not from a get-rich-quick perspective, but realistically, psychologically, financially. And by the end of this video, you'll understand something most people realize far too late. The biggest financial advantage in life is usually not how much money you start with, it's how long you stay consistent. Let's start with a painful truth. Most people don't become financially stressed because of one giant mistake. They become financially stressed because of hundreds of small, repeated habits. Daily food deliveries, impulse purchases, subscriptions they forgot about, random spending to feel better emotionally. Tiny financial leaks repeated over years. And because each individual expense feels small, people ignore the long-term impact completely. That's how money disappears silently, not dramatically, quietly. And honestly, that's what makes it dangerous, because humans naturally underestimate slow effects. If someone loses all their money overnight, everyone notices. But if someone slowly wastes thousands across years, it feels invisible. Until one day they wake up stressed, exhausted, and wondering where everything went. Now here's where things become interesting. The exact same principle that quietly destroys people financially can also quietly build wealth. And that's where the $10 habit comes in, because wealth is often less about intensity and more about consistency. But before we calculate what happens when you save $10 a day for 10 years, you first need to understand why most people emotionally struggle to save at all. And this part changes everything. The biggest financial trap in modern life is this. People treat small money like it doesn't matter. Think about how often people say things like, "It's only $5, it's just $10, it's not that serious." And individually, those amounts really don't feel significant. That's why spending them feels emotionally painless. But repeated daily, they become life-changing. And this is where discipline separates people financially, because financially successful people understand something others ignore. Small, repeated decisions create massive outcomes, not instantly, slowly. That's why poor financial habits feel harmless in the moment. The consequences arrive years later, and by then, the damage already feels permanent. Now, imagine two people. Person number one spends $10 daily on unnecessary habits. Person number two saves and invests that same amount consistently. At first, their lives look identical. That's important, because in the beginning, discipline looks unrewarding. And that's why most people quit. The rewards are delayed, invisible, quiet. But time slowly magnifies everything, and eventually, the gap between those two people becomes enormous. Now, let's finally answer the big question. What actually happens if you save $10 every single day for 10 years? The answer surprises most people. Let's break this down simply. $10 a day equals $70 a week, around $300 a month, and approximately $3,650 per year. Now multiply that over 10 years. That becomes $36,500. And that's without investing, just saving. Now pause for a second and really think about that, because most people spend $10 daily without even noticing it. Coffee, snacks, subscriptions, convenience spending, impulse purchases, things that feel temporary. But over 10 years, those tiny decisions equal the price of a business startup, a car, investment capital, emergency security, or even the foundation of financial freedom. And suddenly, $10 no longer feels small. But here's where things become even more powerful, because saving alone is not the final level. Investing changes everything. Now imagine instead of only saving that money, you invested it consistently. Let's say your investments averaged around 8% annually over long periods. Historically, long-term index investing has often produced returns around that range. Now remember, investing involves risk. Markets go up and down. Nothing is guaranteed. But historically, long-term consistent investing has been powerful. Now here's the shocking part. That same $10 daily invested consistently for 10 years could potentially grow far beyond the original $36,500. And over longer periods, the numbers become life-changing. This is because of something called compound growth. And honestly, compound growth feels almost unreal when you first understand it, because your money begins generating growth, and then that growth starts generating more growth. It becomes momentum, financial momentum, and momentum changes everything in life. But here's the problem. Most people never stay consistent long enough to experience compounding, and the reason is emotional, not mathematical.
The hardest part of building wealth is not understanding money. It's controlling emotions, because consistency becomes boring, slow progress becomes frustrating, and modern society trains people to expect instant rewards constantly. Fast entertainment, fast delivery, fast success stories. Everybody wants dramatic results immediately, but wealth rarely works like that. Real wealth usually grows quietly for years before becoming visible, and that's why financially disciplined people often look normal in the beginning, because while everyone else is chasing appearances, they're building foundations. This is where social media becomes dangerous financially, because people online constantly display outcomes without showing the years of repetition behind them. You see the expensive car, not the discipline. You see the luxury lifestyle, not the sacrifices. You see the success, not the consistency. And this creates unrealistic expectations. People start thinking, if I don't see massive results quickly, this isn't working. But wealth is usually invisible before it becomes obvious, and that truth changes how patient people become. Now let's talk about the real hidden benefit of saving $10 daily. And honestly, this part matters more than the money itself. Saving money consistently changes something deeper than finances. It changes identity. Because every time you save instead of impulsively spending, you reinforce discipline. Every time you invest consistently, you reinforce long-term thinking. And eventually, you stop behaving like someone surviving financially. You begin behaving like someone building financially. That psychological shift is massive because wealth-building habits affect everything else too. Patience improves, decision-making improves, emotional control improves, future thinking improves.
And honestly, many financially successful people are not successful because they started rich. They became successful because disciplined financial habits slowly transformed how they think entirely. Now imagine doing something positive consistently for 10 years, not perfectly, consistently. That principle applies far beyond money. Fitness, business, learning skills, relationships. Growth itself is usually repetition hidden inside time. And once people understand that, they stop searching for shortcuts. Now let's make this painfully real, because most people already spend $10 daily. They just spend it unconsciously. Food delivery fees, daily snacks, random online purchases, unused subscriptions, impulse shopping, convenience spending, emotional spending. And the dangerous part? None of these feel financially destructive individually. That's why people ignore them. But repeated across years, they become the reason opportunities disappear later. And this is important. I'm not saying never enjoy your money. That's not realistic.
life should still be enjoyed. But unconscious spending destroys futures quietly. Conscious spending builds balance. That difference matters. And now, let's talk about the most important lesson in this entire video, because the real power of saving $10 daily has almost nothing to do with $10. The real lesson is this: small actions repeated consistently become powerful. That's true financially, mentally, physically, emotionally. Most people destroy their future slowly without noticing. But the beautiful thing is, people can also build their future slowly without noticing too. And honestly, that should give you hope, because improving your life does not always require dramatic change overnight. Sometimes it starts with something incredibly small, like saving $10 today, then doing it again tomorrow, and again, until eventually you become someone completely different financially. Now imagine two futures, one where $10 disappears daily without thought, and another where $10 becomes discipline, investing, growth, and long-term security. Those futures begin separating immediately, even if the results stay invisible at first. And that's the part most people never understand. The future changes long before the evidence appears. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this: never underestimate small, consistent habits, because they quietly decide almost every future outcome in life. And 10 years from now, you will either thank yourself for starting small today, or regret ignoring how powerful small actions truly are. If this video helped you see money differently, subscribe for more videos about financial freedom, investing, wealth psychology, and building a better future one decision at a time. And remember, big financial success often begins with very small daily discipline, even something as simple as $10.